Joe Crummey on 710 Talk KMPC.
Joe Crummey.
710 Talk KMPC, 5 minutes after 1 o'clock. Joe Crummey, thanks for tuning into this crummy little talk show. Every day we give you more entertainment than you have a right to expect, and today we're on our way. Thanks for those calls. The Joe J situation last hour, I think we've had about enough of OJ and Black Entertainment TV and the Glenn Rogers stuff. It's kind of funny. I mean, that's the thing. You got to try to keep your sense of humor about that
Was
stuff.
the real murderer Glenn Rogers or Roy Rogers?
Yeah, I mean, really. All right, fine. All right, let's move on. I had a shocking revelation recently. Anybody see the L.A. Times today? I don't know how I'm going to begin on this. See that story from San Diego? About the conjoined twins? Not congenital. Conjoined. That's the word for, I guess that's the fancy name for Siamese. Siamese twins. Born down in Mexico, and born on the 12th, I think, of January. Did you hear about this? Today's L.A. Times. Check it out.
Two teensy little babies.
Born to Miguel Angel Morales and his wife Maria Luisa Espinosa. They got 4 kids. She gets pregnant again, and they imagine his horror and his shock when he sees the fact that his twins are conjoined, Siamese, joined at they share the same, I guess, most of the same kind of a heart situation, or is it the liver? They share some organs. They've got an oversized liver, which I understand that Larry Hagman was hanging outside the room there getting kind of excited. He was going, oh, wow, oversized liver, my man. He was lusting after the liver of these little babies. Sit down. Anyway, so these kids, there's nothing funny about this story. They're joined right down the center. Doctors are thinking about maybe possibly they can separate them. The twins have been named Sarah and Sarai, which is just Sarah with an I at the end of it. Artie, what's the pronunciation guide on that? Sarah? In Espanol, you said Sarah? Sarah? And then how would you say S-A-R-A-H-I? Sarai? Sarai. Sarai. Okay, they share a liver. That's what they share. Okay? Larry Hagman outside the room there. I want it. It's up for grabs. But anyway, so you've got these 2 kids. The dad, Miguel Angel Morales, is a mechanic. He makes $50 a week. He's got no medical insurance. As soon as the children were born, down in Mexico, they were rushed up to San Diego immediately, up to Children's Hospital in San Diego, because it became obvious that you got to do something about it. Siamese twins, the chances of having a Siamese twins are very, very low. I think it's 1 in 100,000. And the thing is that you got to, almost all the time, you have to separate them, because if you don't separate them, they don't survive. So you got to do it. Conjoined twins occur once every 100,000 births, 60% being stillborn. Most of them die within a few days. Medical journals say that there are less than 500 sets of Siamese twins that have been known to survive more than a few months worldwide. Okay. Not all parents decide to go with surgery. Some decide, no, we're not going to do this. We'll just let the kids try to take a shot on their own. Most of the kids don't make it. The kids were born in Santa Maria, near the family home on January 12th. Born by cesarean section in a 7-bed hospital. Children's Hospital doctors in San Diego say they want to help. They want to do something about this. Right? They want to help these kids. Daddy's got no dough. He makes $50 a week. Now, I'm not going to be mean and nasty. Because I got a letter, I told you, Joe, don't discuss this and that. It makes you sound cruel and mean. I'm not going to be the one that's going to come on and say, you know what, you Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer are going to have to pay for this. I mean, that's the way it's going to go. Doctors are going to do the work down at Children's Hospital. God love them. But the costs are going to be passed on to those of you who go to the hospitals. It's going to go that way. And I'm going to tell you why that we're going to pay for this, and I'm going to tell you why we should pay for it. It's got nothing to do with morality. Are you ready for this? Because I like this story today. It's obviously a sad story, great compassion. Everybody's pulling for the twins. We all know that, right? You'll be paying for it, so you might as well get on board, all right? I was always troubled. Maybe you were too. when I would go down to Mexico and I saw the border and I saw the big holes in the fence, and I couldn't figure it. I'm about to give you a grand, unified field theory about the United States and Mexico. I'm about to give it to you, and I want your reaction to this. And this is why I think we should help Sarah and Sarai. Even though the daddy makes no money at all, already has 4 kids, is now bringing in, well, he's got 5.5 kids now, if you know what I mean. He's got 4 kids already, and then he's got 2 more, and he's got really hardly any money, and yet they just keep producing these kids. And I know there's a lot of anger. A lot of people are mad about that. Hey, you know what? You don't have the money to bring these kids into the world, and yet you're doing it. And now they're here in the United States, and now we have to take care of it, and it's just endless, and how come you people can't stop? And right? There's a lot of frustration. I understand that. I used to be frustrated just like you. I did until... Yes. I was a lot like you. But I am not anymore. And I'll tell you why. Now listen to this. Here's the grand unified field theory of the relationship between the United States and Mexico. I figured it out. Years ago, I went down to the border. And I was shocked at how porous the border was. That anybody could cross the border anytime they wanted to. And I was amazed at that. And I thought, why is that? Why is that we have an international border here and that guys could just walk back and forth and it's totally cool? I went down and checked out the border like 5 or 6 years ago. I could never figure out why it was so easy to do. I want to tell you a story. Years ago, I lived back on the East Coast. And there used to be this beach on the Long Island Sound, and it was a crescent. You know, if a beach is kind of curved like an arc of a circle, you can kind of see it. It's a crescent inward, and you can kind of see it. And it was all one beach, except in the middle of the beach, they put a big fence. Because part of it was a town beach, and the other part was where all the big shots, all the rich people met. And I thought it was kind of funny that they would split. It was just a beach. I mean, you could see it was, but they put a big fence right in the middle of it. And this is just in my town back in New York. And they went so far as to actually put a chain link fence all the way from the rocks way up on the beach right into the water. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're swimming in the water, you still bump into the fence. It's a chain link fence. You can see through it. You can see all the people on the other side, but you can't really get to it because they took the trouble to actually extend the fence out into the water, and they extended it pretty far because the tide would come in and go out, and so they've got that fence out into the water, and silly me, I used to wonder, how did they get it into the water when it was all water? How do you get a fence in water when there's, and just stick it in the water, whatever, but they did it. And they were pretty into separating this beach. Right? And I remember, not really, whatever, it was just the town, and they did this. And then I remember about 5 years ago, I moved out to California, and I'm down checking out the border one day. I'm down in TJ. You know how you take the road that goes over to the Bull Ring? I mean, right, that is the most western part of Mexico. Right there, it's right on the border. There's a Bull Ring. It's right there. And across the street from the Bull Ring is the border. It's right there, and the beach is right there down in TJ. Check it out sometime. And I remember driving from Tijuana and driving over toward the water. And I'd see big holes in the fence. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd see people standing on the other side of this fence. There'd be coolers there and lawn chairs and people hanging out, and even Grandma'd be hanging out there, dogs, the family pets, ice chests and stuff, all kinds of stuff, people selling stuff on the Mexican side of the fence, but people would be standing on the other side of the fence in broad daylight during the day. And it wasn't until I realized they actually were already in the United States. They were just waiting to descend down the hill for nightfall. They were waiting for nightfall. They were already in the United States on the other side of this fence. They were just hanging with the coolers and the lawn chairs. You know, those short little chairs where you can sit down and everybody hanging out. Sometimes it was families, and you could see where people scurried under the fence, or the fence was wide open and broken. And I was amazed. Gee, I remember saying, well, why don't we try harder to close this border? Sure enough, I went right down to the water, and I realized the fence stopped right where the sand is. And so, in other words, you can walk on the beach from Tijuana, from Mexico, right into the United States, right on the beach. Have you ever gone down there and done it? You've never done it? You should do it. You can actually walk across. It's just a beach. And I thought it was kind of interesting that back in New York, they were really serious about keeping people out. They actually had a fence that went right into the water. Whereas in the federal United States border, they didn't even bother doing that. They just stopped at the sand. And people were throwing baseballs and frisbees and having a nice time. And if somebody threw it long, well, I'm in the United States now. You know, I imagine what that would be like. Yeah, throw me a pass really, really long. I'll go deep. I'll be in Mexico. I'll be in San Diego by the time I catch it. Yeah, and people would do that. They were tossing the ball, and then they'd just having a good time. And I thought, why is this so porous? How come nobody stops? why don't we try harder? And I finally figured it out. I mean, have you ever wondered why? You know why we do this? You know why we're going to help these little kids down in San Diego? We do this because, you know why we lend Mexico $40 billion and don't expect to get the money back? Do you know why we do these things? I mean, I'm sure you were, I used to be frustrated. Do you know why we do this? Do you know why we have so many illegal aliens in Southern California? Do you know why? Here's the bottom line. We have it because we want it. We want these people here because we want to stabilize Mexico. I never really realized this before. We give them $40 billion because we don't want the country to fall over. We don't want to destabilize. This is like what Henry Kissinger would say, the geopolitical view. Can you deal with this? All right? We don't want Mexico to fall over. There's like communist sympathizers in South America lurking in places. Don't want to make you paranoid, but they're there. And if they could destabilize Mexico, they would. What's going on in Chiapas? What do those people want? Heck, if I know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what they want, but they are pretty upset about something. So we throw a lot of money down there. We allow Mexicans to come into the United States to earn money, knowing that when they make the money, they send it back home to Mexico. So they've got some money to keep the country running. That's why we do this. And it works out for everybody because United States business builds all this stuff down in Mexico really cheap. You know, GM has over 40 plants in Mexico. Did you know that? The GM has over 40 plants in Mexico, and they pay the workers nothing. Dirt cheap, couple of bucks, everybody's happy. Have to pay those fat wankers up in Detroit those union wages. Forget about it. No way. I know that Ford has stuff down in Mexico. Chrysler, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, all the Golfs, by the way, all the Volkswagen Golfs that are sold in America, built in Mexico by Mexicans, and they don't pay them a lot of dough. That's right. So big business makes out. Mexico makes out, so they're a stabilized country. Everybody makes out. It does put a little pressure on us here in Southern California, because that's where most of the Mexicans show up. But that's why. That's why we allow it to happen. I finally figured it out. We're propping up the country, and it's in our best interest to do so. It is. I don't want them to fall apart down in Mexico. We want to keep it at least on there. They're close. They're too close. That's why we do what we do. And it's the dirty little secret of the heckler-esque thing about this is the government doesn't want to admit it to us. But that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I finally figured it out. That's why the border is open. That's why people come back and forth with great impunity. And we don't want to admit it to ourselves, but that's exactly what we're doing. You hire guys to do work around your house in Southern California from Mexico. They work real cheap. You all take advantage, and we all love it. We just it's the people we can't handle. It's the culture that's bothering us. But that's too bad. Most of the country is in Southern California. They don't have to worry so much about it. It's where we have the concentration here in Southern California. That's what it's all about. So that's why we have to help these little twins. It's true. That's why we have to help the twins, because we have to help the country. And if it comes out of your pocket, and it's true for every one of these little kids that we help here, there's some citizen in the United States who may not get that free help. But that's the price you pay to prop up Mexico. We have to help these kids. These two little babies that maybe none of them are going to live, maybe one of them will live, brought into this world by people that have no money, and then bring them here to the United States, and we'll take care of it down at San Diego Children's Hospital. I'm not against helping little kids. Not at all. Never am. But that's why. That's why we're going to pay out these high-tech services will be used to save these kids. Brought into a world by people that make $50 a week. Already have 4 kids, they're going to have 2 more. And we do this because we're going to help Mexico to stay afloat. Well, that's why we give them $40 billion and don't expect the money back. That's why we're doing it. I never really knew it, but that's it. That's it. I'd like to get your reaction to that. That's why we do it. It's as simple as that. I don't know if anybody ever stands up and says this. I just did, and I'm curious to know what you think about it. That's why we got to help these kids, and that's why we got to help that country. Because if we don't, they're going to fall over, and then we make a bigger mess. It's 800-471-710. It's a toll-free call from any place in Southern California, which is where most of the burden is shouldered. The rest of the country benefits from the security of knowing Mexico won't fall over, but we here in Southern California have to deal with the cultural thing that bothers us occasionally. That's why. I'd like to hear your reaction to this. It's 800-471-710. It's a toll-free call from any place. I think I've figured it out. What do you think about what I just said? And what do you think about helping these conjoined twins from Mexico in this country? And we're just going to help them, and I think we have to, and we have no choice. Deal with it. 800-471-0710. Now, I've been rambling, and David Courtney has been standing by patiently. David, you are a patient man.
I am a patient man, Chuck.
I finally figured out the thing about Mexico. Did you ever wonder about it?
Stockholder, because every time they downsize, every time jobs are sent to Mexico, when they're sent to China, it's great for stockholders because they get dividends, their stock goes up.
Absolutely.
That's why the stock market is, through the 5,000 mark and just keeps climbing, regardless of what's happening here. However,
and you're absolutely right, Brian. But I think you're only looking at half the equation. And I know you have more to say, and I want to give you the opportunity. But remember, you're right about that. The corporations make a lot of money because they get the work done on the cheap. But remember also, we get to buy it too cheaply. We get access to all these goods that are made cheaply. We also, as consumers, we get a chance to buy it. Remember that?
Well, yeah, but I've kind of been doing kind of my own survey on that. While I don't have any concrete figures in front of me, I haven't seen the prices go down anywhere near as much as I've seen the savings that they have on the labor. That's why, again, the excess goes into the stock market benefit. They're still selling things, I believe, for really close to the same price. I don't think it's reflected in the market. I think it's only reflected in higher stock earnings, dividends, etc.
That's something that we could argue about. I think you're making a very good point there. How about this, though? I think the other thing you're missing, I think it's more simple than that. Okay. Brian, I think that what I mentioned before is that what every American gets, what the United States gets in general, is security. And that's something that you don't see in a stock report, and that's something that you can't get. You can't hire on weekends to dig all day behind your house for $25.
Yeah, I do agree that as far as you don't want people too belligerent below the border, storming the border.
That's
I
right.
mean, that certainly would not work to our benefit in any way. I have to agree with that.
Right, and the whole country benefits from that, although here in Southern California, we take most of the, let's say, the heat for it, because that's where we're so close to the border in Texas and Miami. That's why these things happen.
Right. Now, you also made mention of something about the fat cat union guys. My brother happens to be a non-union carpenter, happens to do excellent work. And he has found that his workload has gone down considerably after the earthquake repairs.
That's right.
Have you kind of were on the decrease.
That's right.
Now he's kind of hurting, even though this is normally a slow time of year. He's been hurting more, and you look on the roof and you see mostly Hispanics. You look
right, people doing drywall. It's all Hispanics. No, you're absolutely right.
And those guys are not union guys. My brother's got one child, another one on the way. Now all these workers coming up on the cheap. Generally, I will tell you flat out that they generally do not do the kind of work, at least that my brother does, and most of the people that he knows. They just come up here, and price suddenly to the American people means everything, and quality is taken a back seat.
That's what Americans want, and that's what they get. You're right. I'm not arguing with you. I have another observation about that. I had some trees taken down at my house recently, right? And I thought, you know what? I could hire some friends of mine that I know who are here, and it's questionable whether they're really here or not for the right reason, if you know what I mean. I could hire that because I happen to have some connections, or I'll go with a big tree cutting guy. And I thought, I'll go with a big tree cutting guy. Guess who he showed up with? He shows up in the morning. He gives me an estimate about my house, speaks English very well. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll do all this. The next day, he doesn't even show. It's just it looks like it's a bunch of guys who can barely speak English come, and they actually perform the work.
Yeah, it's kind of like sooner or later, it's almost like everybody has to throw in the towel. Well, doing what he's done.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, most of the people who do construction work that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of it because I've been working on my houses, you get unskilled labor type people that really work really, really hard for not a lot of money, like $25 a day, and whether they're here legally or not is sort of a gray area, and a lot of that stuff goes on all the time. I can't sanction it because it's against the law, but there's a way that people can take advantage of the Mexican situation right there.
Well, only if you can, if you need some work done around your house, or again, if you are an actual stockholder to get a piece of that. I mean, you even look around on another note. I mean, you look around, you see all the big businesses. Again, we get back to the corporations putting all the small businesses out of business. I mean, that's of course another topic, but you see, Best Buy, all these places that are putting all the mom and pop kind of businesses out of business. Well, this is kind of
that is another topic.
The same coin, where the corporations, again, are the main beneficiaries of what's happening in the country.
Well, yeah, but
the common working man is being replaced by the person that's, like that one guy was saying, guys sitting at the desk. Passive income is becoming the word, the only way to make money in the 90s, and you almost have to have money to make money.
Well, here's the thing.
Real working people, in America have a lot harder time than somebody sitting back and saying buy, sell, stock, gold stocks, what
That
have
is
you,
true.
mutual
But
funds.
what's happening is your brother and now all Americans have to compete with people in Mexico. You have to, whether you like it or not.
But
You're
we're
going to
gonna
have
meet
to
the lo-
compete. You're going to have to compete with them, and they're willing to do the job less than your brother is.
I know, but you know our environment is going to take it really
shorts?
badly here in the next 10 years.
Why is
And our
that?
standard of living is going to be forced down, and we're all going to meet the lowest common denominator until we stabilize
Well,
that. and
that
that's not
may be
good.
well, okay. That may be so, but the bottom line is security for the United States. And remember this: you are in Southern California complaining about it. If you're in Wisconsin, even if you're in New York City, which is a place where there's a lot of let's just say recent immigrants, most of the country, they look. Pete Wilson tried to run for president on this immigration thing. Remember when he announced for president? He was standing in front of the Statue of Liberty in New York City, and he tried to make a big thing about that.
Yeah, the
and what
rest
did
of
the
the country
country
doesn't wanna
say?
help.
They didn't care. No.
The rest of the country does not want to help, and that is true. And again, it just depends on what is hurting me at the time.
Well, that is true. That's a good call, Brian. But again, don't displace the notion of security for the whole country. That's what's going on here, and we don't want to admit it to ourselves. And I'm sure Bill Clinton won't talk about that tonight. He'll be trying to pump up his wife and show us what a great lady she is. That's what he's concerned about right now. That's what's going on. Let's see now. We will go to Sandy, who's in Winnetka, 710 Talk KMPC. Hello, Sandy.
Hello, Joe Boy. I never thought I'd ever agree with anything you had to say.
Well, you know what? I never would have said this until about a week or two ago when I had a very interesting conversation on the telephone. I was always mad. I was always saying we've got to separate these two countries. They're two different economic systems. They're blowing the hell out of the market here in this country, and they're putting a lot of people out of work, and it's not fair. I finally realized why I was so conflicted about it.
Well, I just came back from my annual pilgrimage to a very small town in the mountains above Guadalajara, and have watched firsthand what American industry has done down there, both environmentally polluting the water now so bad they can't even wash in it, and have taken agriculture jobs where 100 men were working the fields down to 2. Now you've got a town of 1,500 people.
Yeah, but let me
there's no
stop you.
work.
Let me stop you for a second. When I went down to TJ, I want to you were talking about how the water's dirty, people can't drink it. Hey, man, the people in Mexico don't mind tolerating that stuff. I remember hanging out on the beach in TJ, and there would be broken bottles in the beach, and people were happy to sit in the sand with broken bottles. They're used to this kind of. They don't mind.
I'm not talking about Tijuana. I don't know. I haven't been to Tijuana in 40 years. I'm talking
Well,
about
I have.
the interior of Mexico.
It's probably worse.
Where these people, no, these streets are so clean. These people take such care. This water is well down in the ground that's now full of phosphates because of fertilizer we can no longer use here in the United States. Now, I mean, it's gotten so bad. This small town is now recycling everything and taking it out.
You know what? Yeah. Look,
Well,
these are good observations, but, taking the big, huge overview, when you're trying to pull one country into the 21st century, these are the kinds of things that happen. It's better this. You're right. Maybe there's some phosphates polluting the water, and maybe, the evil U.S. corporations don't give a damn about the Mexican workers. I got news for you. They don't give a damn about anybody
Well, that's
except making...
true.
But these are the kinds of things that happen when you're trying to pull one country up and prop it up and bring it into the 21st century. It's better this than open revolution in Chiapas. That's what it's all about. That's what it's about, security for the United States. That's all this is. That's why the people are hanging out in front of Home Depot on the weekends. That's why you get a bunch of people that, well, you know the story. Southern California. I finally figured it out. That's why we're going to help those two conjoined twins. Born in Mexico to a mommy and daddy that are dirt poor and can't afford anything. They get rushed here to the United States. Understand it, and it takes a lot of pressure off you. You don't have to get so angry anymore. This is why we do these things. 800-471-710. It is a toll-free call from any place. It's 16 minutes before 2 o'clock. It's Joe Crummey. Thanks for tuning into the show. It's 710 Talk, KMPC.
I'm Dr. David Viscott, your friendly psychiatrist, and I'm thrilled to be back here on KMPC where you can hear me every single weeknight. I'm here today to tell you about a special seminar that I'm doing, a seminar on a subject you don't hear very much about. The subject is intuition, and the importance to you, well, it could be everything. Think of it. There are times when you get a hint about a person. You can't substantiate it, there's no evidence, and yet it's a gut feeling. And if you paid attention to that gut feeling, you'd save yourself time, pain, and worry. This seminar is about learning how to read your own mind, how to get out of the way of those subtle cues and use them to understand people and what they're all about. The seminar is Saturday the 27th at the Radisson Hotel in Sherman Oaks. The number is 800-426-4432. It'll be a day where we can get together, I can get to see you again, and I can teach you how to pay attention to your mind. 800-426-4432. 800-426-4432.
The station you're hearing right now, 710 Talk, KMPC.
Checking 710 Airwatch Tuesday afternoon traffic right in the middle of our big geopolitical discussion here. David, we're going deep today.
You've got it nailed, my man.
Yeah, I think so. Let's check a little traffic now with David Courtney. David.
Indeed we do. 605 freeway northbound where it approaches the 10 in Baldwin Park. Injury accident. CHP just getting the word on this one. They are en route. Also the northbound 605 where it crosses the 91 in Cerritos. An earlier injury accident with a vehicle over the side is starting to wrap up. Same for the Topanga Canyon Boulevard accident. About a half-mile north of PCH, you've got sheriff's units on the scene. City of Industry, the Pomona Freeway eastbound connection to the South 605. A little bit of an accident over to the right shoulder. And the San Bernardino Freeway eastbound past Francisquito. Fender bender, it's on the shoulder. Caltrans slowing you on the Hollywood Freeway northbound. Left lane closed at Hollywood Boulevard. Problem in the crush for the 22 eastbound transition to the northbound Santa Ana Freeway. Somebody broke down in the right lane. 57 northbound past Orangewood, clearing a non-injury crash. And on the Santa Ana Freeway, northbound 5 past 17th Street, stalled bobtail truck is in the right lane. Looking to the Mountains Highway 18 at Snow Valley, injury accident there, so please watch your speed. You still need to have your change with you for the next couple of days at least. Roundtable Pizza invites you to go coupon crazy this January. Bring any coupon to Roundtable. Get $3 off any large or extra large pizza. That's crazy coupon in January at participating Roundtable Pizza. With their watch traffic, David Courtney on 710 Talk, KMPC.
We're not looking for fame. We're not looking for the big bucks. We're not out to win any popularity contest. And so far, all this has worked out real well. We're 710 Talk, KMPC.
Why are we helping the Conjoined twins from Mexico? We are helping Sarah and Sari for free because we have to help out Mexico in general. I figured it out and I boiled it down. It boils down to this. You have to compete. You, Mr. and Mrs. 710 Talk KMPC listener, you have to compete with the Mexican worker for the security of the United States. So feel good. If you're out of work, you feel good about that. All right? Some people just don't get it. Sunday's LA Times. You see this bar owner up in Union Gap, Washington. I used to take a story like this and get on the radio and harangue about it. Have you heard about the story from Union Gap, Washington, where there is a sign in a bar that says, speak English. Proprietor Joyce Ostrander heard three men in the bar speaking Spanish. Why am I hearing the phone ring? I'm hearing the phone ring. I just heard the phone ring. How did I hear the phone? Was this phone? Hello? Didn't I hear a phone ring? I did. We all heard a phone ring? All right, I heard it. Did you hear a phone ring? Because I hear the phone ring a lot. It's not even ringing, but you heard the ring? Debbie, did you hear the phone ring?
Yeah, I heard something.
You heard the phone ring, too?